but it can translate and index a lot of things without the cultural context to it. So it quietly teaches readers and writers that this gap is normal, but the reality is the more we continue using AI as it is, the gap becomes wider and the output that is fed becomes permanent. And that's what the generations that will come after us will find. They'll find that the information that lacks our cultural memory. And lastly, we have the publishing economics. I had talked about this last time, that the cost of producing books is really falling. And also the price that readers will pay is falling. Case in point, I was having a conversation with my dad, I think two nights ago. And I was just telling him how it's not fair that we have a lot of African work that is being used to train AI, and the African authors are not being compensated for their work being used to train AI. And the reality is AI will produce this work in large scale and very fast. And you'll have so many books flooding the shelves in the bookstores at really cheap prices because the cost of production or intellectual thought put to it was barely there. So when you as an authentic author get to take your book to the shelf, you find a book similar in genre to yours is already priced at 300 shillings, while yours, which you've really tried to be fair to your market, you've priced it at maybe 600 shillings. And case in point, you've maybe spent 500 to produce that book, 500 shillings to produce that book. You end up getting a profit of 100 shillings, yet the book next to yours is selling for 300 shillings. So naturally, most people would buy the 300 shillings book, which is really, it just really makes the publishing economics very, very slim. And it's getting harder to beat what's coming on the shelves right now. Yeah, so in a sense, we must compete with the AI-generated content for shelf space, attention, and trust. So that's the tension we currently hold. Then the tension we will hold as time moves. These are problems we can't solve right now, but I'll just name them so that we can see them, and in our own individual ways, following the next slides, we'll be able to see how we can work on that. So I've categorized them in contrast between what AI does versus what the current publishing scene looks like. So preservation versus distortion. AI can faithfully hold on oral history. Oral history is what is culturally relevant to us, the stories that we are told by our parents, grandparents, and anything that's just culturally relevant to us as Africans. So AI can faithfully hold on to it, or does the act of recording flatten it? The latter is true. There's a lot of distortion when it comes to the information that we get when we go to AI with regards to the African context. You'd want to understand a certain maybe cultural tradition, and you key that in your ChatGPT and ask it to define what that means. High chances are it will give you the extreme translated version of what you've asked for, and not with any cultural context to it. So it really outrightly flattens and blunts what we get to acquire. And again, the danger is our children and grandchildren and generations after us will encounter this flattened version, and that will become their reality. Then the second one is access versus ownership. How can we make African writing more available without giving away the rights and revenue? Think about that and sit on it as you go into the next slides. Then the next, efficiency versus authenticity. AI, I'm believing and trusting all of us have used an AI tool at some point. AI will really speed up the work and even production. of certain publications and information in general, but the writer's hand still needs to leave a mark. And for the writer's hand to leave a mark, that work will not come in at the same pace, but it will retain authenticity, which is not something AI has. Then we have global reach versus local roots. How do we publish for the world without sanding off what makes the writing African? For this, I'd say one thing I really encourage my writers to do is maintain their translations as the local language they've used in their text. If, for example, you have a whole paragraph and you have a Swahili sentence in that paragraph, don't try to explain the Swahili sentence, let it stay Swahili, because that's how we stay true to our local roots. The Western world does not, translate English to Swahili for us to understand what they're sharing. So I think and would say confidently, it's fair for us to preserve our work in culture by retaining that language as it is in our text, because there's things that can only make sense in Swahili and only in Swahili, or in, Meru and only in Meru. I recently had someone say you can only we only think best in the language we are familiar with. You might be thinking about the same thing right now in English, and someone would think about the same thing maybe in French, but the way those two languages bring out that thing you're both thinking about might end up giving both of you very different meanings. So yeah, let's retain our languages in our writings. Then the last thing is present practice versus future memory. What we publish today becomes tomorrow's training data. And so the question is, are we building the archive we want our grandchildren to inherit? I believe I'd agree with the fact that what we're using right now was yesterday's data. And at some point, yesterday's data was a present publication in the people of that generation. So it's upon us to really preserve and take care of what we're publishing right now. Make sure it's authentic, has our local roots, the ownership is clarified and well-defined, and we have preserved our culture through it. Okay, so can AI preserve oral histories, or will it distort them? So here I've given 5 points where we can see what AI can help us with and what AI cannot replace. So AI can assist with transcription of recorded interviews in many African languages. I use a tool called Otter AI for transcription of interviews, and it's really fabulous. Of course, after going through the transcription, you'd have to just check for, clarify and rectify certain things, but it's almost always accurate in the translation and transcription. Then, the second part is it can help with translation of drafts that a human elder or scholar would need to come and correct or review much later after the translation. It can also help with indexing and cross-referencing across many hours of recordings. It would help with audio cleanup, and just helping with insertion of captions and subtitles to the videos and movies we watch. And it can make vast oral archives searchable for researchers and descendants. But it cannot replace that pause before a difficult memory and what it means. AI does not have emotions. It's very dependent on machine learning. So it cannot have that human emotional intelligence to know that this was a difficult memory. Let's pause here. And, this is how to transition into the next chapter or context of the story. Then it wouldn't know which story is for the day and which one is for the dark. Culturally, especially those who are brought up around their grandparents, I believe when stories were being shared communally, those stories for the day kina, Sungura Mjanja and all. And then for the night, the stories of ogres and all of that. So AI will feed you what you ask for it at any time. Then the relationship between the elder and the listener in the room is also not taken into context. There's no level of authority when it comes to AI. Then there's the context that lives in gesture, song, smell, and shared place. It doesn't take into account the five senses. Case in point, it's a machine. And lastly, AI cannot replace the right to refuse, edit, or withhold what was given in confidence. It's not a respecter of confidentiality. Its primary role is to follow instructions and execute as prompted. So what happens to African literature in machine learning data sets? Machine learning is what is used to train AI through a very pattern-based approach with data fed into it, and then AI can be able to get information, which is what we get as output whenever we search for things through it, or we use it to generate content. So when a writer's book is absorbed into a model, the writer is rarely paid, rarely credited, and almost always never asked. Yet the model will go on to generate prose in the style for free and forever. So we have different types of AI, and the particular one we're addressing here is the generative AI that's usually used to generate, well, it could be images, videos, content, text, quite a vast number of things in various formats. So the first thing is there's no compensation during the absorption of people's works, especially African authors. So books will be scraped without permission. There's no licensing, and people are not paid. The authors are not paid for their work that's being used to feed the AI datasets. Then we have the stylistic dilution, which we've talked about, flattening of the voices and the culture behind the authored work. Then we have misattribution, AI confidently inventing African authors, books, and quotes that don't exist. I think if you search up any random thing right now, AI will definitely give you something out of it. And you can create an African book right now in as quick as 2-3 minutes, or even a minute. Yeah, you just need to prompt really well. So there's misattribution in that context. And then we have erasure of context. So yeah, cultural references are stripped from their meaning when they're extracted from the original work. So this goes into AI and how it works. AI works through a system called tokenization. So when you, what do we say? So tokenization looks like we have a word like unhappiness. The way AI would understand unhappiness is the word has to be broken down into tokens. So tokens looks like unhappiness or unhappiness. So it's like tiny syllables that are broken down. And then in this large data set of many words, AI tries to learn how has unhappiness been used in all these words. And once it learns the patterns of how unhappiness has been used, anytime you prompt it and it generates something to do with unhappiness, it picks its context from the pattern of all the other the bigger data set where it was used from. So it ends up extracting words from other sentences and paragraphs and all of that. And there's really no cultural reference from what it's extracting from. Yeah, so that's what we mean with that. Then we have technology and tradition. I don't know what to do. Technology and tradition in the same room. So first, consent is the first technology. Before we record anything, scan or upload, it's important to know who has the right to decide what is preserved, by whom, for whom, and in what form. The elder or the family or the community come first. Whoever owned what's being uploaded or scanned or recorded needs to consent to it first. Case in point, if your dad told you a story about something and then you go and maybe tweet it or something like that, ethics of tech mean you need to get consent from your dad because he is the owner of that particular story. Yeah. So in this case, the platform where you're sharing what you're sharing, especially online, comes last. But consent is the first form of technology. Second is preservation, is not the same as publication. Notice the word publication comes from the word public. So it's literally publicizing what we're anything that you are sharing. A story can be saved for the family without being made public. A song can be archived without being commercialized. So build the consent ladder, which is what we've talked about first, then build the technology around it, and you can be able to publish what you want to publish. But just keep in mind that preserving something is not the same as publishing it. Then lastly, build the metadata our grandchildren will need. So metadata entails the very fine details of the data or the publication you have. Include the name of the speaker in each page if you can. Include the date, the place, and the language. If possible, you can include them on the header or footer of the book, and cite the sources. We need to apply these disciplines today because it's the inheritance we leave behind. So if you're prompting anything on AI, try to attribute it to the speaker, the date and the place and the language, so that even as we feed on AI, what we're feeding it has an attribution to someone, all right? And that helps us to preserve, did I say to preserve? No, to help us to attribute what we're sharing. And our grandchildren, 30, 40 years from today, will be able to prompt. And when AI gives the output, it can say, according to so-and-so, this is what, right? Yeah. So that's a good discipline for us to build. All right. And then how do we support African writers today in this digital world? The first thing is fair contracts. I had shared this in the previous webinar. So we should be able to spell out AI training and scraping and derivative rights explicitly. Currently, we don't have contracts. Our publishing houses and models have not adopted contracts that include the age we are in, where AI has the ability to use our work, whether we know it or not. So it's default for us to opt in and not opt out. Opt in means that you explicitly sign contracts where you make sure you've said, should AI use my work in training, I need to get compensated, or you've explicitly said AI should not use my work in training. Now, for when you decide, or should you not opt out, there you have passively given permission for AI to use your work because you have not actively refused. Yeah, but you can always manually go back and block that and, opt in, decide that, no, I don't want my work to be uploaded without my permission and without me knowing. Then second is younger voices. That's our day and age. We need to identify and nurture writers, which is what Kwani is in the business of doing, just identifying and nurturing young writers, and that's teens and people in their 20s, because we are the ones who are currently shaping the narrative that will be years to come from where we are today. And then we have indigenous languages. So it's important for us to publish, translate, and preserve work in African languages, not only the colonial inheritance, which is why I've said stick to the language you've decided to use in your work. Don't translate it, and don't just stick to it. It's very much allowed. But also I had mentioned earlier that we have Lelapa AI, which is training the language models on African languages. Currently Swahili, I think Zulu, Xhosa. That should be said with a click sound, but yeah, I don't I don't have that gift yet. But yeah, it has around four. I think Hausa as well has around five languages where AI is actively trained on, which is incredible. Then we have the editorial investment. Please pay your editors well and credit them visibly, because the reality is between your manuscript, which is the first draft you share with your publishing house, and the work that gets to the shelf on the market is your editor. A lot of change really goes into making our books publish worthy. And it's important to invest in your editor as well, because when this editor does your book well, they get referrals to other authors, and we are able to shape the African narrative very powerfully, strongly, and incredibly. Then you have discoverability. Let's get African books into algorithms, into libraries, syllabi, and curricula. It's important for us to be seen, powerfully seen, and visibly seen. They say a book unread is a tree unfelt, and if you're next to a tree, it's quite if you don't feel it, I think ni kujitakia, and not even just feeling by touch, but just hearing the swishing of the leaves or the branches and the breeze around it. Yeah. Then lastly, we have the community of practice, festivals, writer circles, mentorship. And literature festivals are incredible on this. Kwani is having a literature festival in a month's time, just to bring together different writers and readers, and have that communal bond going on. We have many book clubs in the country. It's important to be, or it's good to be a part of one or two. And join writer circle, improve your writing, and learn different writing styles that are available. And I'd say loneliness kills more manuscripts than rejection does. That's very true. I think you can ask authors who have their books still on their shelves unsold. Most times it comes from that aspect of loneliness, because your book can only go as far and as big as the community you have. And with that, I am done with the presentation. So these are just some few questions to get us into a discussion, if possible, as I open up the floor for any questions you might have. Sharon, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Naomi. And I just love the conversation that you've just started about us owning the stories first, and like owning whatever we feed into AI, so that our generation does not get a corrupt version of the stories we had, or the information we had. And yeah, so anyone with a question, thank you so much, Naomi. That was really insightful. I mean, I just love listening to you because I get to learn a lot.
Oh,
And
thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, so any question? Anyone with a question? Okay, you can raise up your hand or you can type in the chat box. Okay, so let me see. Oh God, I don't know what I just pressed. No question. Okay. Sawa. So I can ask the questions that Naomi has prepared for us. So one is, if you knew your manuscript will be absorbed into AI training set the day after publication, will you still publish it? What will you change first? I'll ask it again. If you knew your manuscript would be absorbed in an AI training set the day after publication, would you still publish it? What would you change first? Yes, let's hear what you guys have to say. Okay, I'm looking for your hands. This is where the teacher gets to choose the student that will answer. Okay. Uh-huh. Anyone who wants to answer?
Hello, I think it's Miss Waiba. I think I want to try.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I think if I will find out an AI has like the script from what I have, and since I'm owning the story, I think naweza sema naweza kuwa more local. Like if ni story ambayo ni mimi mwenyewe from my own community and maybe the AI has the same idea. I think kuna ile kitu tu AI haijui about what I know. So I think naweza angalia ni kitu gani yenye maybe imeadd, but I know the source from behind. So I think that is what I could add. I don't know if I'm right or wrong here, but I think that is what I can be able to do, because AI haijui kila kitu. Kuna ile yenye itakupea, but kuna ile the source ya ndani yenye mimi najua this is the fact, this is the reality of this story. I think hivyo.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sahiba. Any other contribution to that? Anyone with a contribution? Okay, so I can hand it over to Naomi to say something, then we continue.
Okay. Thank you. Sahiba, there's no right or wrong answer. I very much agree with your context. Yeah. AI doesn't know everything, at least yet. Yeah, so that works well. Then, so on my part, I'd say yes. If I knew my manuscript was being absorbed, I would still publish it, but there are things I'd change. So first is that it would be contractual. I'd spell out the AI training rights in the contract very explicitly, with opt-in as the default rather than opt-out. Then the second change would be metadata. Every chapter and passage would carry clear authorship marks, so that even when the text is absorbed, attribution remains traceable to my work. Then the third change would be sequencing. I'd have a controlled launch in print and very trusted digital channels for e-publications before wider release gives the work time to find its first readers, or before it becomes data in public. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Amazing. Thank you, Naomi. And then the other one will be, whose oral history are you holding right now? Have they given consent for it to live online or only in your notebook? Yeah. So whose oral history are you holding right now? And has that person given you the consent for it to live online or only in your notebook? And I feel like we don't talk about a consent enough. For example, the example you used about did you use my father or my grandmother, my grandfather? Yeah, if they tell you something and you get you think about it and then you post it online, you don't even think that you have to to ask for permission from them. We just feel like this was something that was said and I can just use it. So, whose oral history are you holding right now? And have you given consent? Have they given you the consent for it to live online, or does it only belong to your notebook? Yeah. So, anyone who wants to contribute to that? Anyone who wants to contribute to that? Let me see. Let me pick someone now. Uh-huh. Solomon.
Uh, I think to answer that, I think working with communities, I'd say the history I would have will be coming from the communities that we serve. That is like in the rural areas in counties like West Pokot. Those are the counties that have faced maybe banditry and a lot of conflicts. Yes, and one thing we do before we even collect stories from such communities is actually explain why we are doing so and ask for their consent both in writing and in video. So they do give consent for us to put them in writing and also to publish maybe in our social media pages and also to share with our donors once we are able to maybe put them in writing well and also maybe put them in audiovisual as well. So yeah, I think I'd say that. I hope I have answered the question well.
Yes, you have. Thank you, Solomon. Anyone else who wants to contribute? I feel like now Solomon has opened it up, and anyone now can give the answer.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to make a small contribution.
Yes,
You
go
know,
ahead.
for me, especially where I work, we work with people with disabilities, like I said in the last session. But as you work with people with disabilities, especially for the parents or the caregivers, they may give you the consent, but also they restrict somehow, and they'll tell you, no, this is just for your consumption, and you can use it on the internal report, but not to publicize the whole thing. There are some caregivers who will give you a story, and even if you publish it somewhere, they will tell you that that is my story. Even if you use anonymous names and such things, but maybe they can relate somehow with it. So sometimes they give the consent, but they are not so sure. But if they give you that full consent, they also tell you only use this story in this place and also in this place, and not in very publicly way that even other people are able to relate and know this is a story of someone from a particular place.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joe. And I want now. I want to take it back to Naomi. And what do you do when, in terms of like consent, when you get the partial consent? How can you still ensure that the narratives we hold in our communities are still preserved? Yeah. So as you answer this one, you can also answer the question I've asked. Thank you. Over to you, Naomi.
Okay, thank you. Those were very insightful answers. I'm not sure I've gotten the last question. You've asked how we can ensure we preserve.
The narratives, especially when we are given partial consent, like in the case of Joe, where
Mm.
we have to present the stories of people living with disability, and then like how do you still preserve the knowledge where else you cannot publish it online.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me sit on that one as I share the answer for this.
That's
So,
okay.
okay. So most of us in publishing are actually holding someone's story. It could be a parent's story or an elder's. And most times it's through, just our raw memory in conversation or a recorded interview or a transcribed family memory. So the hard question is whether that consent that's given for that story to live in a notebook was also consent for it to live online. Because the reality is permission that's given in a different era for a different medium is not permission for this one. Shika nimepea tongue twister hapo. But yeah, different permission that's given for work to live on a notebook is very different from permission that's given for work to live online. So the honest move would be to go back, ask again with a new context, that digital publishing means searchable, downloadable, and potentially absorbable into the training ladder. So back to building consent ladder. Yeah. So for the question you've asked, I'd say, I don't know. I think it's either there's consent or no consent. And I'd say partial consent would fall as no consent fully, because you can't exclusively justify that partial consent legally should it get to that point. So I think it's no consent or full consent. And in the case where we want to preserve the narrative, then it would be prudent maybe to go and ask again and really clarify the approach you're taking to publish the information that we've received from our elders or family or primary reference or sources of information. Yeah, I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It has, Naomi. Thank you.
Okay, karibu.
All right. So I can go to the next question, which was, what is one African book or writer that should be everywhere on the internet and it's not and is not, then who is responsible for fixing that? Who is that one author that you feel should be everywhere in the internet and they are not? And who is responsible for fixing that? Yeah, so we can just answer that. Leo nimeamua kukuwa mwalimu wa kupoint fingers. Let me see. That's what I wanted to call it here. But Christine, you've been so silent today. Tell us something about which African author or writer you should be everywhere on the internet and is not. And who is responsible for fixing that? Is it us? Is it them? Do they need to do more marketing? You know? Okay, or any other person who wants to answer that? Any other person who wants to answer that? Okay, Bukayo. Yes, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Well, I'll be biased and I'll say Kwani, because not just because Kwani is in the room, but because Kwani is a platform for very many African writers, especially young African writers, and it's our responsibility for us to kind of share and make it visible. So if we intentionally share the African work that we already have been exposed to, digitize them, cite them, etc., I think then that way we'd be able to it's for like it ends up being our responsibility fixing it in such small ways, because the moment we are aware of it, then we get to share it amongst our circles, in our spaces. Yeah. And then I believe in that regard also the AI models would eventually be exposed to this data, and it will help to be more contextualized. Yeah. Back to
Great.
you,
Thank you, Bukayo. Thank you for the insightful answer. Anyone else who wants to add something? Okay, so Naomi, you can take it from here.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, thanks for the shout on Kwani. I agree with you. Yeah, it's an African book that should be everywhere on the internet. Thank you for that. So the reality is the question is very subjective. If each of you has a personal, very favorite author or book that you've read and it doesn't have as much hype out here, but you feel like, oof, this is such a stellar book. So it's a very subjective question. Who is responsible for fixing that? It's you. It's you, because the work that you have enjoyed, you're the primary fan, and it starts by you. Sorry, by you closing that gap to name the writer. First of all, if at all you'd prompt its work on AI, but beyond that, to celebrate them and shout them out on your social media platforms or literature communities, etc. So yeah, that's the answer.
Great. I also agree with Bukayo that Kwani is one of the books that should be everywhere. You guys should
Thank
also
you.
read Kwani. Yeah. You guys, everyone in this room should read Kwani. It's now Kwani 4.
Yeah, we're now at Kwanipo.
Yeah. You guys should read those books 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So the other question, when you use AI to help with a piece of writing, who do you tell? Is it your editor? Is it the reader? Or do you tell yourself? This reminds me, I was applying for something and there is an AI declaration. You have to declare that you used AI at the end. You see the way you have to confirm that you are a robot or not. So in that particular application, you had to say, yes, I have used AI. And you you say that, yeah, I have used AI. So when you use this AI to write a piece, who do you tell? Is it the author? Is it the reader, or is it yourself? Yeah. So let me see. Anyone who wants to answer that? Dorcas, Swahiba? Anyone? Anyone who wants to answer that? Okay. Uh-huh. Anyone who wants to answer that? There are no writers here. Okay. Now let me see if I can pick someone.
Can I say something
Yes, you can.
before you pick someone?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
I think most of the time when I write a lot of things, I think I tell it to my readers. But as I tell it to my readers, I think there is not like you that you are told to declare then that you've used AI. But at the back of my mind, I keep on telling myself I've used AI, and I always look out to people if they'll notice or if they'll not notice. But most of the time, I tell to my readers. Thank you.
Okay, interesting. Anyone else who wants to jump in? Okay, then I can give it to Naomi then. Okay, there's someone who wants to say something. Okay, Bokayo, and then when you're done, you can pass it to Naomi.
Okay, I think for me it has always also been a big question, other than also in writing, at what point should we declare the use of AI? I'm thinking we should be transparent depending on how much AI has shaped the work. So there's tiny bits of like maybe structuring or fine-tuning the grammar. Maybe then it does not need to be like a headline, but if it has heavily influenced the idea, the voice you're using, the argument, or the creative direction, then I think it matters to put it out there that the case it was you've used an AI tool to kind of shape the idea. But yes, I'm happy to hear from Naomi.
Okay. Thank you so much, Joe and Bokayo. Joe, that's good practice to notify your readers, especially where the work was influenced by AI. I don't like demonizing AI. It's a very incredible tool, but it's not good to use it at the expense of our voice, as Bokayo has said, where truly what you're putting out as your work in quotes is really has nothing that looks like you. Yeah, so for this, the answer would be pretty much all three. So currently no one really shares or is answerable to someone or something whenever they use AI, but the norm is really shifting. So editors, I am one for sure. We increasingly want to know whether our authors have used AI to assist them in writing, because how I read their work will really shape my perception on their voice, the originality of the work, and even the consistency that comes to the entire manuscript. Readers are also starting to ask, and some reading communities require closure. Some that's similar to what Sharon has shared, where you're asked to declare whether you've used AI. Then the third audience would be yourself as a person, and that's the most important, where you have honest self-disclosure, because if you cannot tell yourself how much AI has shaped your piece, then you cannot be able to tell it to anyone else honestly. Yeah, so well, the minimum working standard for now is at least tell your editor every time, and be able to treat AI as your editorial tool, more than a co-author. Yeah, let it not take over your work. Yes, so that's
Amazing. All right. And last but not least, if you had a choice, a smaller readership that pays fairly, or globally, one that pays attention. Okay, what am I reading? Let me just use this big screen here. If you had to choose a smaller readership that pays fairly, or a global one that pays in attention, what will your honest answer reveal? So, if you had to choose a similar readership that pays fairly, or a global one that pays in attention, which one would you choose? This is quite an interesting question. And I feel like everyone should give us an answer, because this is a very interesting question. So for those of us who want to type, you guys can go ahead and type. And for those of us who want to say something, please go ahead. Just raise up your hand, or type in the chat, and we will read and or hear you out. that pays? Hey, this is a hard question. Some of us are thinking about money, and then at the same time, you need attention for your work. Okay. Smaller readership that pays fairly. Okay. Interesting. Anyone else? Waiba says she'd rather have a smaller readership that pays fairly. Anyone who feels they want a global one that pays in attention? Smaller readership. Okay. I would want to know why you're choosing smaller readership. Okay, interesting. Anyone else who wants to say something? Hakuna wa pay in attention. Okay, one that a global one that pays in attention. Anyone? Okay. Seems like everyone wants smaller readership. Over to you, Naomi.
Okay, thank you. I think there's no right or wrong answer, but I applaud everyone. That's a very, very wise choice. Super wise. So on this one, the choice genuinely exposes our economic dependency, and even our distribution, philosophy. Many African publishers have been forced into the pays in attention or exposure route, and that's majorly by structural constraints. But I think anyone who's authored knows that attention does not feed editorial teams. It does not pay royalties to you as an author, or even keep the lights on, both at the press or in your house. So the harder and more sustainable answer is smaller but fair. And it's not the same as saying it will stay small forever, but it's just a starting point with a readership that genuinely values your work enough to compensate it. And from there, it can be able to grow from that particular point. So choosing global attention first often means choosing your brand's visibility over economic dignity, which in my opinion is not wise. So the honest answer will reveal whether we're building a press or we're building a stage for publicity. And both are valid choices. But yeah, I'd say it's better to start with a small bit and get paid fairly. Just don't stay small forever. You get to expand with time. And that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Naomi. Thank you for that. And indeed, attention doesn't pay bills. So you'd rather get a small readership that pays fairly. Great. What a way to we are wrapping up, right, Naomi?
Yes, we are done. We are done for this series and session. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been amazing having you.
Thank
And as
you.
I say, yeah, I just love the way you present so calmly and very full of wisdom. And, thank you so much for coming. And it's been great to have you for the 2 sessions. And we really appreciate you. And yeah, thank you very much. To our participants also, please let's appreciate Naomi. The emojis that you have near you, please let's appreciate her. And let me just, as we wind up, because I don't intend to keep us here for long. Let me just present something on my end. Yep, here it is. Yeah, so can you see what I'm presenting? Naomi, you can stop sharing your screen. Oh, great. I don't know why from my end I can't see it. Okay, so please confirm if you can see it.
Yes, you can see it. Titan Consultancy.
Really?
Yes,
Okay,
conversations
let me
that connect. Yeah, we can see it.
okay. Okay, sawa. Turning me too. I thought it was not
Imeacha.
showing. Let
Yeah.
me okay, let me just do it again. Okay. Yeah, so we are having this amazing conversation. We will scratch off the name Kilifi and just put a coastal edition. So we just want to continue this conversation physically, and of course with very many partners. And our main partner is Kwani. Kwani is a publishing is it a company, organization, or what is it? Yeah.
It's a lot of things, but we can say
Yeah.
a publishing house for now.
So it's oh god, it's a publishing house, and we just want to bring this conversation home. And if you're in the coastal region, Lamu, Kilifi, Kwale, Mombasa, please feel free to come in and indulge with us. We will also share the link for the registration. We are also having tickets being sold at 800 for the early bird and 1000 for the my PC is running out of battery. Yeah, so please make sure you come if you're able to. And also invite us to your city. We had one in Nairobi, and this time we want to take it to the coastal region, and we just want to connect with people from there. It's going to be an amazing session. And yeah, so the details will follow as well. You can also check out our social media handles to just get a hint of what is happening. There's call for partnerships, there's call for speakers. Yeah, and we will also release the partners we have on board. We will also release the dates. No, the dates, the venue in the course of the month before the month ends. And also we will also release the program of the event, and I'm sure you guys are going to love it, because whatever is about to go down is going to be very good, so you don't want to miss